everybody, welcome to Grimm's Forge Gaming. Today we are going to update my Witcher build, and as everybody should know right now, Stamina Necromancer is a very strong class. I do have a Stamina Necromancer that is a two-hander sword and board. However, my Witcher build is a bow two-hander, and so we focus on playing it ranged with my Witcher, and he does a lot of damage. So we're going to jump right into the build, and then we'll kind of explain things as we go. And the first set that we are running is Stormfist. This is our monster set. I just actually put this on to test it, and I like it. So what's going to happen is it's going to do 2,000 shock damage every 1 second for 3 seconds. From a PvP standpoint, when this area of effect starts happening, most people move out of the way of it, and that's actually the desired effect. So when we're shooting zergs or balls of people, balls of people, we're shooting a group of people. uh, when we're shooting a group of people, the desired effect is to drop this right where they're at and either make them spread out or relocate. And so, this is Stormfist is a great monster set to run, and this is my 2 heavy armor pieces. We are 2 heavy, 5 medium on this, so that way we can hit the medium armor passives. So Stormfist, it's been working out well. You could also put Balors here. I've been a big fan of Balors lately, and just that extra weapon damage that you get after you use an ultimate is really nice. And the changes that are coming up for Greymore with Balors are nice as well with the penetration. This build, we do not lack penetration, and we'll look at that here shortly. The next set that we are running is New Moon, and this gives us our additional penetration, going to give us some crit, and it's going to give us our weapon damage. And we do have this with the prismatic enchants on it. The next set that we are running is going to be Shield Breaker, and Shield Breaker is actually a really nice set. You can get this from Imperial City. New Moon is craftable, obviously. I think everybody should know that by now. But Shield Breaker, you can purchase this down in Imperial City from the Telvar vendors. And they do have these gold jewelry down here for 100k Telvar a piece as well. And I'm only running infused on one of the jewelry pieces, and then the other jewelry pieces we're actually just running stamina recovery. I really like where our stats are at right now on this build. Our bow is Nirnhoned. We're pushing the most amount of damage that we can on it, and I went with New Moon on that so I could actually craft it right out of the gate rather than getting a Shield Breaker bow and then having to transmute it to Nirnhoned. But this is the poison that we're using. I'm a big fan of this poison, and it's a double dot poison that is also a double draining health poison, and so just the additional healing that comes into this, it's not going to be spectacular. Like, you don't sub this out for vigor or something like that, but it's noticeable. Like, you add this onto a build where your healing is kind of iffy, and this makes all the difference in the world. Our back bar is defending, and we're running the two-hander, and that's going to be our buff bar. Let's jump into the build. We're going to look at it buffed up here real quick. Alright. Our stamina recovery is at 2,500. Our weapon damage is at 3,600, and this will go up a little bit. Our weapon critical is at 45. Our resistances on our bow bar are about 25,000 and for spell, and 27,000 for physical. Our max magicka, we don't have a lot of magic abilities on this bar or on this build, and so 15k is more than enough on our magic. And then health, right now we are down in Imperial City CP. I spent a lot of time down here. I just took the build out last night too, and ran into a bunch of really cool people, and we ran all over the place killing people and everything in sight. And anyways, I have a little video clip I'll share with you guys. I wanted to thank those guys for helping test the build out. Even if they didn't know at the time they were helping test the build out, they were pretty cool group of people to run with. Anyways, Jumping back in, our max stamina is at 30,000. I like where this is at. And our physical penetration is at, we'll say 6K, and that actually will go up by 1,500 on our bow bar um, because of a passive, the passive that from this class passive here. And it is this right here. While a Grave Lord ability is active, your spell and physical penetration is increased by 1,500. So the way that we engage a fight is the very first thing I do. So if they jump on me first, I'm going to CC them and then summon a Blast Bones. Reason being is we want to get that major defile on them. Plus this thing hits really hard. Unbuffed, we're at 13,000 damage. So um, but as soon as we summon our Blast Bones, we now have an extra 1,500 penetration. And we're running Lethal Arrow, unbuffed. Right now we have an 11,000, almost 12,000 poison damage, and it applies minor defile, and so that's what makes Stamcro very dangerous, is the defiles and then the major vulnerability that you get from it. But this build right here can apply minor and major defile. So we get our minor defile from our lethal arrow, and we get our major defile from our blighted blast bones, and that's really hard to come back from. It's very hard to come back from. Anyways, the regular combination would be summon the blast bones, hit a lethal arrow into a heavy attack, followed by a silver shards heavy attack, and it's like a 50k damage burst. It's silly. It's a lot of damage. And so, looking at our abilities unbuffed, we're kind of doing that already, but our lethal arrow is 11,000, almost 12,000 unbuffed. Silver shards, which is a fighter guild ability, and it's going to be at 7,700. Damage, and it's also an AoE or conal attack. So if anything is standing near the initial target, it's going to do roughly 22% less damage to those targets. But I'll see this crit everything because of our crit chance, how high our crit chance is right now. I'll see this crit everything standing in front of me, and it's just a huge amount of damage going out. This is our hard CC, and it is not without teeth. It hits hard as well. So 6,500 unbuffed, Blighted Blast Bones, which we talked about, and then Camo Hunter. And just yesterday I pulled a Nightblade out of stealth, and he was running for his life. I put a lot of damage into him, and he just simply couldn't re-stealth. And so I like this a lot, and if you've ever used this ability in the sewers, you can actually, it changes the way the Daedra look in the sewers too. They kind of have a glow or a hue about them. That's pretty cool. This is my source of major savagery, so it's going to give me weapon critical rating, an additional 2,200 basically, and this gives me access to minor berserk. And the minor berserk, getting this bonus is just as simple as sending a blast bones at a group of people, because if the blast bones hits on the side of any one of those targets or from behind, you have this buff, which is pretty much all the time. So this works perfect for a Witcher type build, and just because of the inherent tankiness of a Stamcro too. If somebody were to jump on us, we can face tank banners, we can face tank world bosses, even though we're ranged. If somebody, a dizzy swing stamina player jumps on us, it's not going to chop through us. We're not without defenses. So anyways, I like where this build's at. Our ultimate that we're running is Pestilent Colossus, and this thing hits hard. You can see right there, it's 3 direct damage for roughly 11,000 apiece unbuffed, and it just crushes them 3 times, and then it applies major vulnerability. And so I can tell you this is my regular combo. If I get jumped by a group of people, I'm going to summon a Blast Bones, then I'm going to Pestilent Colossus them. I'm going to dodge roll and then turn around and hit them with the Silver Shards. And That's a lot of damage, and if any of them are still on me, I'll Magnum Shot them, line up a lethal arrow, heavy attack, summon another Blast Bones, and we're fighting. But this thing changes the tides of fights. There's not a lot of abilities in the game that give players access to major vulnerability, and man, it's dangerous. So, anyways, that's our front bar and our back bar. I am running Mortal Coil, and this thing's awesome for a free ability, and it doesn't function like a regular hot or heal over time. It actually has a much smaller heal that comes in. And the heal from that is really nice. You get a little bit of stamina that comes back from this, and then your healing done is increased by a flat 3% while you have this. And I believe, let me look at it here. Yeah, so while you have a negative effect on you, you're going to get another 8% healing received. And anyways, there's an ability here. There you go. So increase your healing received by an additional 2% for each Bone Tyrant ability. So we do have our armor buff on this back bar. So just between that flat 2% and the 3% at the bottom of this one, while slotted, your healing done is increased by 3%. And if we have a negative damage effect on us, we're going to get another 8% healing done. So our back bar is very healing centric. All my builds are set up for solo PvP, and as you start getting into groups that offer different buffs and things like that, you can mix and match stuff. But I usually build my players for solo PvP, and I don't expect that anyone else is going to be able to heal me. I need to be able to heal myself and kill everyone in sight. So we're running Vigor, and I'm still leveling Vigor. I don't spend a lot of time on my back bar just to buff up, and that's it. So this tooltip will get much higher than this. I think fully buffed up, we'll probably hit 17 to 20k on that. We're running Spirit Guardian. The heal over time from this is nice. Occasionally, if somebody that you're near that's the same faction as you, if they're low on health, this guy will heal them as well. While active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the spirit, so you have a flat 10% damage mitigation with this. And so in conjunction with our resistances being very high and the fact that we are a Nord, we feel very tanky. So not only are we bursty, we're tanky. So, and I'm using Summoner's Armor. The other morph to this actually will occasionally draw or summon people to you. You don't want that morph. We want to fight from range, number one, and number two, we want to maintain our ability to CC the targets. And that other armor, Beckoning Armor, when it pulls them towards you, it gives them CC immunity. So Summoner's Armor is the way to go. If I were to change anything about this, I'd drop the monster set. If I wanted to gain a bar slot, if you look at this, Summoner's Armor costs magic at a cast, and it does what? It gives me a 15% reduction on my next Blast Bones or Spirit Mender cost. Well, if I were to drop this, Spirit Mender is literally my only Magicka consumption, and at 2400, it's not a big hit on 15k Magicka. So if I were to drop this, I would go with Chudans for my monster set, and then I could add something here. Maybe it's Shuffle or Elude or whatever, and that might be the play. I don't know. Maybe it's Race Against Time, and that will make you much faster. So anyways, that would be my flex spot on this build, because the extra 15% to reduce cost is nothing really. And another thing, kind of along those same lines, yeah, here it is. When your Blast Bones or Skeletal Mage or Spirit Mender dies, the cost of your next Blast Bones, Skeletal Mage, or Spirit Mender is reduced by 50%. So that passive right there makes this, while active, reduce the cost of your Blast Bones, Skeletal Mage, and Spirit Mender look, just kind of not needed. So this would definitely be your flex spot for those reasons. Add Race Against Time, add Shuffle or Elude, or add whatever you want there. And we are running Rally. This is going to be a burst heal, and this is our form of minor endurance and major brutality. So this is our damage buff. And if I'm really getting bullied by somebody, I can't seem to line up damage against them. Occasionally, I might have to go into Ravenous Goliath to recover from the fight. Like if they burst me down and I can't buy space from them, they're running immovable pots. Um, I will use Ravenous Goliath to start getting back in the fight and start bullying them. And the nice thing about this is it lasts 20 seconds, and if they're close to me, bursting on me, it's just going to heal me. If it's one person, they're not going to be able to kill me through this. And unless I'm already within execute range as I'm hitting this, and they pull the execute off before everything kicks in on this. But um, anyways, Ravenous Goliath, that's the way I recover from a really bad gank effort or whatever if needed. So let's see. So we looked at our gear. Let's look again real quick at the build buffed here, and we need to look at the back bar here so you can see what. So our spell resistance is 27,000 and our physical resistance is 29,000. We have a flat 10% damage mitigation on this build as well. And we have a lot of additional buffs coming in from our class passives and stuff from this back bar. So that's really nice. There's an example of the small hots coming in too from your Mortal Coil. And so buffed up, we've got a just under 13,000 lethal arrow. We've got a 8,500 here. Our blast bones is 14,000, almost 15,000, and then we've got an 11, 12, and 13. And our mortal coil, our buff keeps dropping off here. Yeah. Our mortal coils 16, almost 17,000, 15,000 on our vigor that we're still leveling. We've got 23, almost 2,400 coming in every 2 seconds there, and then we'll have a big burst heal from that. And so that's our gear, that's our stats, that's our abilities buffed. And as far as class passives, you'll want to get all your class passives. I'm not so much worried about this one, your damage done over time. I don't have any damage over time on this build, but if you were running Venom Arrow or Poison Injection, pick this up for sure, or Arrow Spray or whatever, any type of damage over time, pick this up. I don't need it for my current build. All your class passives on a Necromancer are very nice, and all your bow passives and unbuffed. If you look at this, I could use um, I could back bar um, Pestilent Colossus, and it's a bigger ultimate, and I could bow ult people, and the bow ultimate has a really high tooltip, 65,000, 67,000 buffed up, and so that's silly on our back bar. I would front bar this, and so my single target damage would go up, but honestly, I'm killing most things on my bow bar with just my regular rotation, so building ultimate's not a problem. It's not like I'm relying on my ultimate to kill things, so just players. And two-hander, we just have rally, and so I have forceful, so my heavy attacks will do a splash damage, and then we have balanced warrior, just so that way my rally is the cost of it's cut by 15%. Medium armor, you'll want to pick up all your passives here. I don't do any sneaking on this guy, but if I decided to go that route, I would. I'm not a vampire or a werewolf on this guy, and so anyways, I don't really need that. But get all your medium armor passives, and then your heavy armor, you're only going to need the top 3. And fighter guild abilities, we are using silver shards and we're using camo hunter on our front bar, and so it's important to get this passive right here when we switch to our front bar, because I have 2 abilities. You could see our weapon damage is increased by 6%, and so the fact that we're wearing an armor set that gives us an additional 6% damage to everyone, or an extra 12% damage to targets with a damage shield. And the damage shield could include DKs that are using shield assault, or they're using magma armor, or whatever it is. Something that gives a character a damage shield, no matter how small it is. I get a 12% damage bonus to them, 6% to anything else in the game. But this this ability right here, because we have two um, fighter guild abilities on the bar, that's really nice. Banish the Wicked. I spend a ton of time down in Imperial City. I still need to drop one more point into this to cap it out, but basically this helps with old gen. And my fighter guild abilities do an additional 20% damage to undead, daedra, and werewolf. So that includes vampires, and so this thing hits really hard. I'll see this actually outperform my lethal arrow, mostly because it is an instant cast, and it's a conal effect. Um, and so I can get two shots of this off, and the same time I can get one of these off. And so if they're a vampire or a werewolf or a daedra, this is your go-to. So, um, anyways, let's see. Undaunted. This guy, like almost all my other characters, I hardly spend any time doing dungeons. You know, if I'm in a dungeon, it's to farm gear and that's it. So this build is only going to get stronger as I start doing dungeons and I get it my Undaunted command and I get my Undaunted metal. And I have done a considerable amount of PvP on this, but I need to probably cap out vigor. I still don't have continuous attack or reach yet. So this build's in Combat Frenzy. This build's only going to get stronger with those. We are a Nord, like I said, and Nords have a rugged passive, so it's almost 4k additional spell and physical resistances. It's how we're able to hit our 29,000 physical resistances on a medium armor build with, 3,500 4K weapon damage. We could hit 4K with a damage glyph on our two-hander on the back bar. But anyways, Rugged's really nice, and Stalwart's nice. It gives us some extra stamina and ult gen, and we get some extra health and frost resistance here. And jumping into the CP, we're going to look at this, how I like to set up my CP. I've got nothing in the apprentice. I've got 60 into physical weapon expert, and so basically my heavy attacks are going to hit harder. And pretty much any build that uses lethal arrow, you should be hitting your lethal arrow and holding heavy attack while your lethal arrow is going. And if you release your heavy attack or medium attack as your lethal arrow looses, they'll both hit at the same time. And so that's a really nice burst combo. So this is a nice grab for anything that is using lethal arrow or a bow. Mastered arms, all of our attacks are considered direct damage attacks. Like I said, we don't have any damage over time, and so for me, I drop 60 points in that. And like all my builds, I explain this 60 points is my hard or soft cap. The reason being is mastered arms, you can get that to a total of 24-25%. You can see I'm almost at 21% with 60 points in it. To get it to 24-25% is the cap, I think. I'd have to drop another 40 points in here, and that's just simply not worth it. So to get that extra 4%. So 60 is where I like to stop on most of my builds. Precise strike 60%, because we have a near 50% crit strike, and then when we get a target below 25% health, our critical chance goes up to like 70-75%. So we're going to be critting a lot. So 60 points into precise strikes. Piercing, I've got 60 points into that. We want to have real good penetration on this build so they feel it. And we're running 30 into mighty, and Over here, I've got 60 in Ironclad, 60 in a Medium Armor Expert, and this right here, like a lot of my builds, I'll explain this. I don't put a lot of points into Hardy or Elemental Defender for this reason. A lot of people will put 60 points into Hardy, and that'll give you a 10 or 12% damage mitigation. So let's say you have a 10,000 physical damage ability coming in, and if you're going to cut 10% off of that, it's going to cut off 10% of 10,000 damage is going to be 1,000 damage, and that's just simply not worth it for me to drop 60 points for 1,000 damage mitigation. So I'd rather actually drop 60 into whichever armor I'm using. So for this one, we are running 5 medium, and that's going to raise my physical resistance by 4,400. I'd rather have the base stats than shaving off 10% off of an attack. So I've got 60 into resistant, and probably going into Greymoor I'll come off of this resistance, or I will keep this resistance, and I will change my armor from impenetrable to all well fitted, and that way we will be that annoying dodge rolling bursty dude that nobody wants to fight. So nothing into Hardy or Elemental like we showed, and I've got 60 into quick recovery, so our healing received is increased by 12.5%. 60 into Warlord, we are going to be CC'd and we will have to break free. And I've got 60 into Mooncalf, 60 in Arcanist, and 30 into Tenacity. And like I was saying, so with the lethal arrow and hold heavy attack and let them both loose or medium attack and let them both loose at the same time, if you got points into Tenacity, you can almost negate the majority of the lethal arrow cost. And so that opener doesn't cost you much stamina, or that's spammable. So if you're the guy that just stands back spamming lethal arrow, lethal arrow, lethal arrow, at least be spamming lethal arrow, medium attack, lethal arrow, medium attack, and you'll be able to be that spammer that much longer. We've got 60 points into tumbling because why not? We're going to dodge roll all around and get people off of us and then blow them up. And while my back bar is almost completely block cast capable, I'm not going to be block casting from that back bar. I'm going to be dodge rolling and killing people. So we don't do much sneaking around. I could probably put points into Defile, and that might be the play because we do offer major and minor Defile on this build. So that might be the play. So anyways, let's look at it. We looked at the gear. We've got the stats buffed, abilities buffed. Our food that we are running is Bewitched Sugar Skulls. We're going for max stats. We've got max health, max stam, and health recovery. And so I like where everything's at on this build. Hits very hard, and because of major and minor Defile and the rotation that we do, we just absolutely nuke people. And Stamina Necromancers are super tanky. They have Spirit Mender, so they get a flat 10% damage mitigation, and then that Necro alt really, really hits hard. So that is the build, everybody. I want you to be safe out there with your build. If you're looking for something other than a two-hander or dual wield, you want to use a bow on a Stamina Necromancer, this is the build, man. Have a good one. Just a call.